Hello, my fellow nerds, and thanks again for watching another episode of Nerd Boy Gaming. I am Nerdboy81. Ark Survival Ascended is upon us, and it appears to be coming with mixed reviews. From anywhere from this game is garbage to I can't play it, all the way to man, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and I absolutely love it. But being completely new to Ark and its releases and Studio Wildcard Snailed Games, I wanted to take a look and try to understand why the hate. Is it just gamers being gamers in 2023, or is there some merit to the anger? So I decided to get into my little time machine Google, go back to the beginning, and kind of do a little research, understand a little bit about its history, and then come back and compare it to Ark Survival Ascended. So if you go back to 2014 when Studio Wildcard was first founded by Jesse, Doug, Jeremy, and Susan, the studio was set to create an expansive, unique, immersive, open-world survival game, which essentially they have done. Now, at launch, it wasn't the greatest game of all times. In fact, it was a bit of a grind. It was considered buggy, it crashed a lot, and it was a little bit of a grind. So Ark Survival Evolved was actually released in June of 2015 in early access. By December of 2015, Snail Games would acquire or merge, depending on what news sources you look at, with Studio Wildcard, thus creating the expansion and the path for the release of this game. Since that acquisition and merger, the game has had free DLC, paid DLC, has had tons of patches, updates, quality of life improvements, and of course the modding community has done what the modding community does. And to this day, Ark Survival Evolved remains one of the most successful and enduring titles in the survival genre, and that's thanks to Studio Wildcard's dedication to updating and expanding the game. Snail Games played a significant role in bringing the game to the Chinese market and allowing it to gain a strong following there. The game's success has led to sequels, spin-offs, and demonstrating its enduring appeal in the gaming industry. Fast forward to Ark Survival Ascended, and trying to understand if the anger is merited, or if this is just gamers being gamers. Let's be honest, in 2023, gamers can be a little bit fussy. And in this case, though, I went back and I looked at it, and I can understand there's some reasons to be angry. And it goes back to 2020 at the Game Awards when Ark 2 was officially announced. It was supposed to be slated for a launch in 2022, then that went to 2023, now it's 2024, and who knows if it's 2025. Ark Survival Ascended was supposed to just be a remake of Ark Survival Evolved. It was supposed to be a remake so that the developers and programmers could get a better feel of Unreal Engine 5 and work within its assets. And at the time, it was announced that it was going to be free. And this brings me to what I think could be the biggest challenge for Studio Wildcard, Snail Games, and now Nitrado is in this group as well, is miscommunication. The missteps along the way and the way they communicate with their community. By first announcing Ark 2 in 2020 for a 2022 release, and now it being 2024, maybe 2025 before it comes out, it gets the communities to start feeling frustrated. Then they announced Ark Survival Ascended was going to be a remake, and it was going to be an updated, it was basically going to be taking a donkey, putting a horn on it, and calling it a unicorn. That's the way it felt to the gamers, and it was going to be free. Which, if that was the case, that's what it should be. If you're just going to put a little bit of makeup on the pig, then it should still be free. However, they later then came back and said, no, probably because of the financial situation that Snail's Games is in, they came back and said, no, we can't offer this game free. So what we're going to do is we're going to bundle it with Ark 2. So essentially, you're going to buy Ark Survival Ascended, and then you're going to get Ark 2 at no cost. Now, that seemed like a fair, middle-of-the-road play. But, again, Snail Games having significant financial problems had to pull that back and eventually said, no, Ark Survival Ascended is going to be a remaster. It's going to be built up from the ground, and it's going to be completely recoded, and therefore, it's a new game, and you're going to pay for it as such. Now, they didn't launch it at a $60 or $70 cost, but they were going to launch it, and it was going to cost money. These types of miscommunications and changes and challenges is what makes the community angry. They begin to seethe. They begin to get frustrated with the constant missteps and backpedaling and changes and miscommunications. And then, of course, there's all the money that the Ark community has put into this game and wondering with Snail Games, where'd the money go? Now, there's other people who've put videos on where that money went. There's other content creators who have covered that. I'm not going to cover whether or not Snail Games is a bad company, a good company. I'm just looking at why are the gamers angry today? And number one is miscommunication. And that miscommunication continued all the way through to launch of ASA. Now, the game is still out, only in early access, so technically it's still not launched. But going back to Ark Survival Evolved in its launch, it had the same problems. It was plagued with stability issues. It came out, when it came out in early access, which I'll be honest, as a gamer, I can understand that. They also had many content packets that came with it. Paid DLC, free DLC that you were able to load and play on the game. And they had plenty of opportunities to create good communication within the community. And even those contents, and I wasn't there. I'm new to this whole Studio Wildcard and Ark and Snail Games and all of it. I'm new to this. I get it. But in talking to the community and those who played before, it was not uncommon for Studio Wildcard to say that a specific content was going to come out on a Thursday and it not come out till Friday or maybe even Saturday. It's those types of missteps and miscommunication that really create anger within the community. And so that miscommunication continued even all the way through ASA. For instance, as the weeks leading up to what we knew would be the eventual launch of ASA, it was clear because of Snail Games' financial troubles and the exclusivity of Nitrado, which is a whole nother issue we're going to get into here in a few minutes. But because of the exclusivity, the game had to be out by the end of October or it was going to lose its funding and potentially be the end of Ark Survival as we know it. At Nitrado, who put a bunch of money up front to get exclusive rights to host servers and to help get this game finished, was not going to sit around for months and months and months while the game was in development. Nitrado, like Snail Games and even Studio Wildcard, is in the business to make money. That's why people start businesses typically, is to make money. There are a few that are for philanthropy and other reasons, but for the most part, businesses make money. The people who work there make money. That's why you start business. So sitting on the shelf or developing the game for month over month was not going to give Nitrado any money. We all knew this game was going to come out before the end of October. We all knew in the community and the people we talked to, and you can look in a mirror and ask yourself the same thing, we all knew this game was going to launch and it was going to be buggy. But leading up to the launch, Studio Wildcard, Snail Games, they continued to take an approach of very little information. I feel like they felt the less they gave us up front, the less time we could really ferment the anger and frustration and really start creating that negativity in the Discords or in the Reddits or on YouTube or on Twitter. Instead, they kept it to the vest and they just kept going along. The Friday before the game would launch, they had a community crunch. There was no new information, no release dates. It was just another ho-hum community crunch. They didn't mention the console delays. They didn't mention the specs of what this game was going to require to run. They hadn't even mentioned the trailer at that point. They just said, it's all coming soon, guys. Just be patient. Fast forward a couple days, we hear there's a trailer coming out. It's going to have actual gameplay, or it was going to be part of Microsoft's third-party event, and there was going to be some gameplay. It was going to be really exciting. So most creators and people who are working on this game, they all waited for that day. They got their trailer. It was exciting. Everything felt good. And then it was announced the game was launching that day. And it was actually really, honestly, kind of buried because in the trailer, it just said coming soon. But in the actual description of the video, it said coming later this day. Again, no communication. Most people didn't find out what kind of specs they were going to need to run their computers till that day. And the game was coming out that afternoon. Again, Wildcard could have given themselves a buffer. They could have said 2 days from now this game's coming out and given themselves a buffer, but they didn't. Then they said 4 o'clock, the game's coming. At 5 o'clock, the game's coming. 7:30, the game's coming. 9 o'clock, the game's coming. And so on and so forth. I think the game dropped somewhere around 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And it was a mess. Now the game looks pretty. Not going to take anything away from the game looks, but the actual release of the game was a mess. And again, it all goes back to that miscommunication. And miscommunication is one of the biggest things that cause gamers to be angry. So yes, the gamers have a right to be angry. The game is still pretty, but they do have a right. And that's just point number one. Point number two, why gamers are so angry today. Yes, this game launched and we know it's early access, but the game has been buggy. It's had constant updates. They've been doing server rollbacks. It's been glitchy. It's crashing. It's kind of a mess. In fact, it's a big mess, frankly. But it's early access, so we're gonna turn the other cheek and ignore it, and we get to play it. The game looks beautiful. Not gonna take that away from them, but the game is still a mess. It's a glitchy, buggy mess. Hats off though, Studio Wildcard working their tails off, trying to get this thing optimized. A lot of gamers today, and this is seeming to be common game after game after game, are asking, why are we not just waiting till the game is more stable before release? Well, in this case, Nitrado stepped in and gave a bunch of money, but the game had to come out. That was a requirement. If the game doesn't come out, they don't get the money. And so we were stuck with a buggy mess early access launch of ASA. A game that at one point was kind of called a remake, which is now a remaster, which again, I personally don't feel like it was like taking a donkey and putting a horn on it and calling it a unicorn. It really was a ground up rebuild of the game, and it looks amazing. So thank you for that. Then there was the console delays. Unexpected, apparently, to Studio Wildcard. They failed certification. The game couldn't possibly come out on console, so they delayed it. They've since, as I've recorded this, there is a date now for launch on Xbox, November 14th. Again, though, you don't hold your breath because Studio Wildcard has a history of missing their dates and their times. But ideally, this game could potentially come out on November 14th for Xbox. PlayStation is still going through certification, still having some challenges. That will probably be end of the month, hopefully. Everybody is, in my community, a lot of us are console players. I know PC players are getting to play the game now, but a lot of us on the console, we're just waiting. And we're hopeful that what comes out on November 14th is a playable game and is something we can get behind and get excited about. Let's talk a little bit about Nitrado. So, Snail Games apparently is broke. They're out of money. That's why they couldn't give us the game free. They couldn't give us ASA free because they were out of money. There was no way they could get Ark 2, which they announced in 2020, through development with the money they had. So here steps in Nitrado, who wants exclusivity to server renting. Again, probably a wise business move. It's a big game. If they have exclusivity on it, they can charge whatever they'd like. They can do whatever they want. They can make whatever rules they want to make because they are essentially funding this game to completion. And what we don't know, and at least I haven't heard, is how that's going to impact Ark 2. But as of right now, last I heard, Ark 2 is a Xbox release exclusive and possibly Xbox PC. We don't even know for certain if it's going to be on Steam. Nitrado then has its own issues. Nitrado, having essentially a monopoly on the game, or who has exclusivity, made some big mistakes. It announced that you can't run private servers initially without being part of their partner program. It was charging a lot more than most server rentals were at that point, but they had the right to do it. They had exclusivity. And just as a consumer, we all had the right to turn around. And many creators, big creators, people much, much bigger than me, did not like what Nitrado was doing, came out and said so, and Nitrado has since backed it up. These are the things that are frustrating the gamers. Telling us it's free. It feeling like a remake of a game we already had, although, having spent some time now on both Ark Survival Evolved and ASA, I'll get into this in a second, it's not really a remake, but it feels like that. That's how it felt. That's how it was marketed at some point. The gaming community is angry. There's some frustration. There's missteps. There's miscalculations, miscommunications amongst the developers, the programmers, the publisher, and of course, the community. That is why they're angry. Is it justified? I'm going to say probably. If you've been a longtime Ark fan and you've been a part of this for a long time, I can understand why you're frustrated. I can understand why you're tired of it. I can understand the anguish you may be having dealing with Studio Wildcard and Snail Games. You might be extremely frustrated that the fact that Snail Games is now broke and having to fund its next game, which is supposed to be the true sequel to this game, with a remake of its last game. I can understand the frustrations. Gamers are gamers today, though, and there are some that are a little bit more vocal with probably less cause, but I get it. People are frustrated. Now let's talk a little bit about what's been good, because I like to leave things in a good spot, and how I feel as a noob to this whole Studio Wildcard and Snail Games. The game is good. It looks pretty. It's the game you love. Yes, it's the island, but they've promised all the other maps at no cost today. Now, they could roll that back, which again is why the frustrations, miscommunications, there's lack of trust. But as of right now, the idea is that by buying ASA, you're going to get all of the content from ASE. Now, it's not just a true remake. It is a bit of a remaster. They recoded it. The island looks different. There are places in the island that look completely different. Yes, it is the same foundation. It is the same map. The same main locations are there, but it looks different. It plays different. There's great quality of life improvements. There's some really nice things in ASA. They didn't just take the donkey and put the horn on it and call it a unicorn. It is a nice game. It is definitely, if you're a returning Ark player and this is the first time you're going to foray into ASA, it will feel different. It will still have the nostalgia and the love of the game and the same basic foundations of it, but it's going to feel different because the map's going to look different. I'm excited for the future maps that I haven't played yet, that I'm excited to play on ASA. I'm excited for the content we're going to create. I definitely believe we're heading in the right direction. I think Nitrado has done the right thing and pulled back some of its early decisions. Studio Wildcard has worked super hard to get this game stable and going. If this game launches November 14th on console on Xbox and it is playable and it's not a huge buggy, glitchy mess, it'll be a step in the right direction. So, guys, I understand the anger. I believe there's some merit to it. But let's enjoy the game. Let's sit back, tame our dinos, have some fun, and remember that at the end of the day, they're working hard to provide for us. Many of us paid very little for the game initially. Some of us paid a lot because of the downloadable, all the content and all the stuff they added on. But you probably also got thousands of hours of game time. Take how much you spent on Ark, divide it by the hours. That generally is probably going to be a pretty good number. For me, luckily, I played it on Game Pass, so I pay my normal monthly subscription. And yes, I will be buying ASA when it comes out. I'm excited for it to launch on console. I'm excited for the future of this game. Hopefully, Studio Wildcard can continue to surprise us and put out good things. Hopefully, they can learn some lessons from this launch and continue to get better as they bring out the next maps and the next content and Ark 2. But guys, thank you so much for stopping in. I hope you're enjoying this game. I hope you're having a lot of fun like I am. And until next time, have a great day.